It's Wednesday, March 22nd, and this is Geeknights. Tonight we talk about Tsuki and Tactical Roar. Let's do this! So every day this week I'm going over a few reminders. The first reminder is you should go to our website. I know a lot of people out there found our feed via some podcast directory or iTunes or something, and you're not actually going to our website. It's frontrowcrew.com. If you go there, there's a forum where there's lots of fun talking going on.
And arguing.
And awesomeness. You could just join that. There's a little link there, but if you want to go right to it, I'm pretty sure it's www.frontrowcrew.com/forum.
Also, don't forget that we have 5 separate feeds, one for each day of the week and one for all days of the week.
Yep, so if you only like video games, you can subscribe to just Tuesday. And if you like video games and anime, you can subscribe to Tuesday and Wednesday. And if you like all of Geeknights, you should just subscribe to the one feed that gives you everything.
Yeah, and thus you can stop asking us for that feature.
Yes. And lastly, we have this cool Frapper map, which lets everyone who listens to Geeknights put a little pin on the map to show us where you are. It's www.frappr.com/frontrowcrew.
And we seem to have a listener in, Norway?
Norway!
So, hello, Norway!
Woohoo! Your time zone is very distant from our time zone. I wonder if it is night or day when you are listening.
So anyway, we only have one actual news for the rest of the world today, because the other news is more, well, you'll see.
Mm-hmm. Oh. So, Google has this thing they're working on called, well, you probably all use Gmail or know about it, and if you don't know about it, well, we have a zillion bajillion invites, so we can get you Gmail if you want. It's pretty much the best web-based email there is.
Yeah, and they're not evil like Yahoo, so...
Yep. And basically, on our hosting, I was running a real email server, real. The problem was, that's not easy, even for a technical guy like me. And I couldn't get certain features to work. I have 3 domains. There's my personal domain, there's frontrowcrew.com. We got we got 2 other domains on the machine.
Yep, Thief Rabbit,
yeah,
Mid-Hudson Gamers.
Yeah, but we couldn't get email for all the domains. You could only get email to work for one domain. Now, it's not technologically impossible. It's just difficult, and it's not worth the effort. So when Google announced they were going to have Gmail for domains, I signed up for that beta.
Now, what that means is, instead of pointing our DNS record, the MX record, for those of you who know, at our email server, we point it at Google, and then Google takes care of our email.
So basically, Google has the email server that runs Gmail, and all the emails that are meant for us that would normally come to our server instead go to Google's server. And when they show up there, Google puts them in our Gmail accounts.
So now instead of geeknights@gmail.com, we're geeknights@frontrowcrew.com, as you would expect.
But on our end, we're using Gmail. Even though you're sending the mail to frontrowcrew.com, it's Gmail for us. Woo!
Now, this feature isn't widely available to the public yet. We're inside of the beta.
Yeah, I signed up for the beta as soon as they announced it, and they just sent me the email allowing me access today.
And about a minute after he got that email, we went nuts playing around inside it.
It's basically just Gmail with a few little bits on top, and the only thing wrong with it that I can tell so far is that you can't use the Gmail notification thing.
Though I'm sure someone soon will write a new one or fix that one.
I'm sure it'll be fixed rather quickly. This isn't, Now, apparently this beta was expanded today.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a lot of neat features. We can make aliases, meaning I can have my account, and then I can make a whole bunch of different names that all point at the same account.
Well, all the advanced features are for the administrator of the domain, which is me. The users of the domain, of which I can make 10 total users, because it's free. I guess if I wanted to be able to make more than 10 users, I would have to pay money or something.
Or maybe it's because it's a beta right now.
Yeah, I think in the future what they're going to do is going to charge money for more users and stuff. But the administrator of the domain can do all sorts of fancy stuff, and all the users are just users. But, you can rebrand the mail, and then, the idea is that you can sell it to, other people as if it was your own mail type of thing. With your domain. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, if you had a domain that was worth selling.
Yeah. and I read the EULA carefully because there's a lot of potential for badness. But the EULA pretty much said, this is the EULA of Gmail, but the only other thing we're adding to it is like, all users are considered customers of you and customers of Google. And I'm like, all right, sure. Whatever. Who cares?
And of course, this isn't really specific to this new Gmail domain thing, but Gmail in general, for those of you who use it but don't really use it well, there are a lot of very cool features in there that you can play around with.
Yeah, Gmail has fancy stuff like labeling and
yeah, like
filtering.
Now, if an email gets sent to Geeknights at Gmail or Geeknights at Front Row Crew, it goes to both Scott and I on our own email accounts. In fact, for me, it goes into a special folder called Geeknights.
Yep, me too. Well, it gets labeled Geeknights.
Yeah, which works like a folder, but also you know what? Play around.
It works more like a tag in Delicious than a folder.
Yeah.
It's still cool. So if you're not using Gmail and you're using some crummy old school email type of thing, what's wrong with you? Oh, also Gmail has chat. And the chat in Gmail is hooked up to Jabber, which we use anyway. So it's kind of like, ooh, we can integrate everything. It's all good.
Yep. Now, before any of you ask, no, we're not giving everyone email addresses at frontrowcrew.com.
No, we only have 10, and we've already used 2 or 3.
Yeah. And the original, I guess, actual Front Row Crew, which I don't think we've ever actually explained what the Front Row Crew is.
We could do a whole episode about that.
I think we will someday. But I guess the actual members of the Front Row Crew get first dibs on this.
Yeah. Right now, we're going to use it mostly for business matters and not so much personal matters. And once the business matters are taken care of, then the other things can,
So in actual news, there's a group, and this has been on Slashdot, and it was actually reported a while ago, but it was reported again today, and I decided that it's something worth talking about. They are suing Target stores, their online presence, because they are not as blind or otherwise disability compliant as these people would like them to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it might sound simple, ADA and such. Oh, well, you should accommodate people with disabilities. The internet makes it a whole lot trickier than it is in the real world to enforce or manage that sort of thing. And there's really no easy answer here.
I mean, imagine trying to use your computer where instead of a monitor, you just have speakers that read stuff to you. And then you have a Braille keyboard. It's not easy. And, when the internet isn't designed for not having a monitor and people don't specifically accommodate you with your special situation, it's pretty much nearly impossible to do anything efficiently.
I mean, the worst part is that a lot of people on both sides of the debate, there are half the people who say it's impossible and we shouldn't even try. And a lot of people who say that you have to accommodate people. And actually, it's that latter group that I'm more worried about because they're trying to push forth legislation, and they've been doing this for a long time, that would require websites, as in all websites, to meet certain usability standards. And it's my opinion that most of these usability standards are either impossible, difficult, or just stupid to force people to do.
I think what they should do is, if you're a company with a website that sells stuff, right? It's like you have enough money that you can afford to pay someone to make like a different usable version of your site or something like that.
Or in the very least, if you've got phone orders instead.
Yeah. I mean, you could just have, the website, if they go to it, they can read them off what's there. And then if they can't successfully make an order because they can't click on an image link or something, who knows? They call on the telephone. Yeah,
but a lot of these laws people want passed that would force all websites to comply. I mean, what if you put up an artsy, cool Flash animation site? There's no way a blind person can use that site.
Yeah, Flash is pretty much impossible for blind people to use. Absolutely impossible.
Flash, any site that uses a lot of JavaScript to move stuff around or navigate.
Yeah, blind people cannot use Homestar Runner.
Now, actually, there's a big problem now that's arising with CAPTCHAs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those of you who don't know, you know how a lot of times when you sign up for a forum or a blog or whatever, when you're making the account, it'll ask you to repeat some characters that are written in a text image.
Yeah, there'll be like a picture with some letters in it, but the letters will be all funky, so like a computer couldn't read the letters, only a person could read the letters.
Now, yeah, that's great. It keeps spammers out, and I'm actually a big fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
However, what's a blind person to do?
Actually, on Google, Google has CAPTCHAs, but every Google CAPTCHA has a little button next to it that will speak the words out loud if you click on it.
Yep, and I've seen other places that just have an email link where you can email the administrator if you are blind or whatnot.
Yep.
But there are a lot of sites out there that just don't implement anything.
Actually, I have one forum I'm in for the Comic Geek Speak podcast. Whenever you log in, you have to do a CAPTCHA.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty annoying.
That's silly.
The thing is, it's okay because blind people can't read comic books. So there aren't too many blind people in the Comic Geek Speak forums.
Actually, I know there are a lot of blind people who are really into podcasting.
Oh, podcasting is like the best thing ever for blind people because RSS feeds are really easy to read with, things for blind people, and downloading MP3s and playing them is real easy for blind people.
Yeah, not so popular with deaf people, I hear.
No, deaf people not liking the podcast. Deaf people definitely much more liking the video casts and the websites, the blogs.
See, I guess my main idea here is that, like the ADA, I mean, it's basically yes, you should try to accommodate as many people as you can wherever possible without undue hardship.
Mm-hmm.
And people have to keep the undue hardship idea in mind. I mean, just because if I make some fun website just for myself, should I be forced legally to spend the time and the effort to make it compliant to every possible disability out there?
Yeah, I mean...
It would be easier for me to just shut down the site.
I mean, if the ADA is kind of like PETA, if they had their way, then like every single building and every single business in the entire world would have an accommodation for every single disability ever. It's just not feasible. I mean, every single like raised building needs to have like a handicap lift. It's like, I think what's happening is the people who make like ramps and all those crutches and wheelchairs and all those sorts of handicap equipment are like ADA lobbyists to try to get more of this stuff.
You realize the ADA is an act, not a group. There may also be a group, but I know
there's a group that
there's the Disabilities Act, and that's the main thing here. Because one thing, I agree with many of the things the Act says, because for one thing, it mandates that all new buildings have to include certain basic, easy-to-implement things like ramps, wide doors, wide elevators.
Yeah, why not?
I say that's great. The problem is if you try to enforce it, and luckily this hasn't been done on, say you have an old building, a historical building, there's no way to update a building like that.
Nope. Without destroying the building or something.
Yeah. RIT got hit with that. There's a room at our college that's up a tiny spiral staircase, and they used to have like dinners and not really balls, but like fancy dinners up there. It's at the top of a tower and has a nice window out to the campus. And they were forced to shut it down because they couldn't make it compliant. Because the building was built after the act, and this room was not accessible via elevators. Because
so
it was
basically the room.
Yeah, there's a storage room now for janitors.
Why couldn't they just make the room something that handicapped people don't want to do, like
no,
exercise?
that you can't. That's how the law works.
It's so silly.
Yeah, but then again, it's kind of like the evidence laws in court. If there's no penalty for not following it, then people just would say, "Oops, sorry, we didn't mean to not follow it, but it's too late now. The building's built." Ha ha ha.
I mean, it's okay if you don't have a handicap accessible ramp to get into the gymnastics room, because they can't use the gymnastics room, It's not okay to have, say, no ramp to go to the bowling alley, because handicapped people like bowling.
Well, what about the gymnastics room? I mean, what if someone who's handicapped wants to watch gymnastics?
Oh, if it's like a gymnastics, arena with seats and everything, then of course they have to get in. I'm talking about like the gym where people go to practice.
I guess, I don't have an answer either way. It's just there's a very fine line between protecting the rights of handicapped and disabled people to interact with society and protecting the rights of people to do and build whatever they want to do.
Yep.
And the internet, this is 1,000 times more, because it's not like anyone can't just build a building. You need money, you need resources, and you were forced to consider a lot of these things. You don't need anything to build a website. And I'd say that at least 80% of the internet out there is not in any way accessible to handicapped individuals.
I think what people should just do is, if you decide that you want to make your stuff accessible to blind people, and, then you're going to get a lot of benefit from all the blind people who flock to your website.
That's what I say.
Yeah, and so it's just, you don't need any law to encourage you to do it. It's just, if you want blind people to come to your website, do it. If you don't want them to come, don't. And you'll suffer or be better for it.
I mean, I guess in my eyes, the only websites that should be required by law to accommodate these sorts of things.
Government
would be
websites.
Government websites, public services websites, or any website that maybe not be run by the government, but like libraries.
The postal services website.
Yeah.
The financial aid website.
Non-commercial products and services.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Definitely has to be accessible and standards compliant and all that.
I guess the only reason I bring it up is that I've been seeing this issue appearing more and more. And one, most people who design websites for companies just don't care about it at all. And then the companies get in trouble, or the legislation keeps getting pushed, and someday this sort of thing might get passed, and then the internet's in for a rude awakening.
It's actually really Microsoft's fault because Internet Explorer and, not being good about standards or anything. It just so happens that well-written websites that follow the standards and, have nice CSS and all that jazz are actually much easier for blind people to use than websites made to work in IE and not any other browser.
Yep. The problem is most corporate websites now, at least most of the crappier
all
ones.
the splash crap all over them.
Either that or they're designed by some guy in Dreamweaver. Because honestly, there really aren't any good GUI tools for building CSS.
You know what it's called? Hire a designer who doesn't suck. There's plenty of them. Go around to like any of those CSS websites and you see the million amazing designs that are all perfectly compliant. Hire those people.
But they don't want to pay for that.
Oh, well.
But if there's no reason to pay for that, I mean, if the only people who care are nerds like us who raise a fury but nothing comes of it.
Yeah, well, we'll see when IE7 comes out what happens. We'll see.
Well, I did see the news that IE7 is completely separated from Explorer now, apparently. I didn't actually read the article.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe we'll talk about that another day.
Yeah.
So my thing of the day is an interesting study we found on eSolutions data.
Yeah, so check out this scientific study eSolutions did. They took a bunch of old people, and they brought them into a room full of computers. And they had them try out all these different operating systems. And when they tried them out, they filled out a little form, that said what you liked about it and rated things from 1 to 10 and all that jazz.
Now, one operating system came away with 72% of the users in terms of, them saying it's the best one or the easiest to use one.
Really?
Yeah.
Which one would that be?
Far and away, senior citizens prefer Linux.
Wow, were they using GNOME or KDE?
It actually doesn't say.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
Though DOS actually comes in with 14% right after it.
Really? How did DOS come in second? How do people even know how to use that?
I don't know. They must have had it set up. They must have had some old school guy. I imagine it was at least DOS 6.
Maybe they had directions or something. And maybe because it's so simple and, not a lot of flashy colors to scare the old people away.
Yeah, Windows 2003 server just barely edged out BOS. I don't know where they got a copy of BOS.
I don't know why they even tried BOS. No one even considered using that, for real.
Well, maybe they got BOS because the study was BS.
You think?
Well, you see, this is why this is my thing of the day. I made this study up just now, but if you follow the link from our website, there's a very professional-looking site showing you all these statistics.
Really? So it's a little fake statistic generator to fool people?
Yep. eSolutions Data is a site where you can put in whatever statistics you want, and they'll generate a really flashy-looking site that if you don't read the fine text all over, because it says it's fake all over the place, but no one really seems to look.
Everyone just looks at the picture of the, Linux, 72%, blah.
Like it even shows like a picture of two people talking, and it shows a graph and all these things, but it's all made up.
Wow, people are just...
I got Scott with it this morning. I said, because I found
You got me
it.
for like a second.
Yeah, I got him for like a second, but it was worth it. I sent him one. It was like, would you give up the First Amendment for, money? And it showed that like 2/3 of Americans would give it up for $1,000 or more.
And for like a second, I was like...
He messaged me back like, no way. Nah. And then before he can reply, I sent him another study proving that 100% of people think he is in fact a gullible penis.
Penis? Yeah. So, everyone go make fun fake graphs and scientific studies and show them to your friends and fool them.
The best thing is you can fiddle with the URL and look at all the studies other people have put in this site. And you know what's scary? Most of them don't look like they're humorous. They look like someone was really trying to fool someone.
I bet you it worked. All right, so my thing today, it's this cool little website. It's Flash, and what it does is it gives you a picture of a part of a keyboard on a piano. And you click on 10 keys, any 10 keys, and the first one you click is number 1, and the second one you click is number 2, and so on. You get to click 10 notes in total. 10. Then what it does is it goes through all the digits of pi, and for every digit of pi, it plays the corresponding note. So the first note that will be played is the third note you pushed, then the first note you pushed, then the 4, then the first again, and so on for 10,000 some odd digits of pi. And
the net result is some random sounding music.
The net result is some random sounding music, but I think it'd be very interesting if, is it true that maybe no matter what combination you entered, at some point during pi, there would be good sounding music? Or maybe you could purposefully try to create some good sounding music based on known numbers in pi and then get to that point to hear it? Or, I don't know.
I could probably make fairly good music by picking sets of notes that form certain modal keys or chords.
Yeah, I'm sure if you pick like 10 notes that go well together, no matter what the order is, you could probably make something that sounds good.
Actually, Scott made something while I was watching him show me the site that sounded all right. He just hit all the black keys, which was basically just a pentatonic scale, which most people consider it modal.
I hit them in order. What I did is I picked like 5 low black keys in a row and then 5 high black keys in a row. So if the number was between, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, it would be low, and so it was kind of either low notes or high notes. So it was like
Well, Scott doesn't really know anything about music. I just thought it was funny that he picked the minor and major modal pentatonic scales.
No one cares.
Yeah, but I thought it was funny, which I think that's the reason it sounded not bad, because the thing about that kind of scale is that there's no way to hit a wrong note. There's no way to hit 2 notes next to each other that sound bad.
I just picked some random keys that,
You picked all black keys. There are only 5 black keys.
No, there were some more black keys.
There's only 5 black notes.
Oh, okay, but there are more than 5 black keys on the keyboard.
So tonight we're reviewing 2 anime to go back to our classic. Well, technically no. We're reviewing one anime and previewing another one. Now the first one, I can't believe we actually had to do this, but Scott decided he wants to say the name of it in Japanese. So, Scott?
Oh, it's Hanbun no Tsuki ga Noboru Sora.
Yeah, Under the Light of the Half Moon?
Yeah, something like that.
All right, we're watching that. And Tactical Roar, which we watched 1 episode of, and
we're not going to watch another episode. So
that was enough.
This is all you're going to get.
And you know what? You don't want more.
You're not going to get more.
All right, so the Half Moon. Well, we'll call it Half Moon just to be quick and easy. It's a show that I really didn't hear anything about, didn't know anything about. We downloaded it randomly, and I expected it to be the same as all that other crap anime we've been watching lately. Because we've been watching a lot of crap anime.
And starting out, when you first watch the first 5 minutes, it seems kind of crappy. It doesn't seem crappy like, oh, this is bad. It just seems kind of average.
It feels run-of-the-mill, and it feels a lot like those shows that are based on dating games.
Oh, it feels a lot like that, yeah.
The thing is, this show is actually good. At least as far... We've seen the first 4 episodes, and it's not the best show in the world, but both of us like it enough to where we really want to see what happens, and we're going to watch it all.
Well, it's because there's only 6... I just discovered 5 minutes ago, there are only 6 episodes. And once you know what the show is about, you realize that 6 episodes is good for this show, as opposed to like, oh, it should have had more or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, at first, I was like... just earlier, we watched episode 4 just during dinner.
Yep.
And I was like, so what? Is this show going to be 26 episodes? It should be like 13 or maybe even less. And now I find out it's 6, which is perfect.
Yeah. And the thing is, I like shows like this, but this really isn't the kind of show I would have expected Scott to care about at all, yet he's watching it with me.
Well, it's not like my favorite show in the world. It's pretty average, but it's better than a lot of other stuff that's out there right now, so... And it has a lot of redeeming aspects other than its main...
This is definitely a show that you can watch alone and get a lot out of it, but it's also one of those shows where if you watch it with a crowd in an anime club, it becomes 1,000 times more hysterical.
Yeah. So let's describe what goes on the show. The show is about this guy who's in the hospital. He's a teenage kid.
He's got hepatitis.
He has hepatitis, which means he can walk around and do stuff, but if he tries to do too much, he'll get sick.
Oh, you tried to do too much with it.
He tried to do too much with it. And he has to stay in the hospital till his hepatitis goes away. Not really life-threatening unless he, disobeys the doctor too much.
Or drinks the liquor the doctor tries to give him.
Oh, my God. Yeah. So what happens is he misbehaves because, if you're in a hospital, you're going to be kind of bored. Especially, I don't know why he doesn't have a Game Boy. This is supposed to be Japan. What the hell?
Well, he always sneaks out and goes to his friend's house to play, looks like a PlayStation.
Yeah. So,
Now,
anyway,
there's this nurse who's taking care of him, and
the nurse is funny.
She's kind of mean, and mean in a funny way.
Stern, but fair.
His friend, we call him Zebra Mask for reasons that are best left to you watching the show.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing is, he's in the hospital, whatever, and it could have been a typical, he meets a girl in the hospital, and then there's some crap about that. And he does meet a girl in the hospital, but it's not like every other show. This girl has a terminal illness.
A really scary terminal illness. Like, she's going to die soon unless she goes to, Denmark to get this rare, expensive surgery she can't afford.
And, the show basically tells you flat out that there's no way she's going to be able to go and get the surgery.
Yeah, this isn't like a spoiler. This is something they say in plain English in, the first or second episode.
So basically,
first episode.
Basically, this girl is dying. And either they're going to operate on her it has a very low chance of success, and it'll probably kill her. And even if it succeeds, she won't be able to live that long.
Mm-hmm.
Or she can not get the operation, and she's still going to die fairly soon.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no happy way out of this.
So the nurse says, hey, if you go befriend her, then I'll be less mean to you. So he does, and then, over the show is sort of like this, little romantic, friendly kind of thing going on. And that's the plot, is this guy and this girl, this guy with hepatitis and this girl who's going to die, hanging with each other.
The show is generally very low-key and very atmospheric, and it's more realistic than you'd think, despite the humor that crops up from time to time.
Yeah, I thought there was going to be some unrealistic action, but there wasn't. I was expecting there to be some in this particular scene, but they didn't really have any.
Yeah, there's a scene, there's not much to spoil, but there's a thing on a ledge that, up on a high building, and, you expect this classic anime scene of, almost fall, rescued, crazy, whatever, but no, none of that.
Yeah, it goes pretty normally. And there's also the best is in the first episode.
Oh, the old man?
There's a funny old man with a collection of porn. And
the guy's name is Tada, I think.
Yeah.
And they refer to it as the Tada collection. He has thousands of pornographic magazines and books.
It's this fantastic porn collection, amazing. And there's a plot surrounding the porn collection that I won't spoil, but let's just say the porn collection stays around for quite a while and makes many important things happen in the show.
As far as I'm concerned, the porn collection itself is a character independent of the people who have owned it.
Well, if you're going to say that, the porn collection is my favorite character in this show.
I don't know. I like the nurse.
The nurse is definitely the funniest.
The only character I don't like is that frickin' doctor.
Well, the doctor, I think, is supposed to be the bad guy.
I don't know, because I don't want to, not to ruin anything, but I'm torn between believing that he's just this evil, kind of perverted guy versus he's just really depressed and broken by dealing with what he's dealing with.
Well, that's what the show's about, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the whole show is just dealing with, say you have a person who is going to die, and everyone knows this fact, and there's no question about it. How do people deal with their friendships and their relationships with this person knowing that they're going to die? And how does this person deal with their relationships with other people knowing that they're not going to be around?
Yeah, this is what I really don't get is if I found out, let's say I found out right now I had super crazy disease Z and I was going to die in a week. But in the meantime, I mean, the girl who's sick can still walk around and do stuff. She can't do it. She's kind of in the same situation as the hepatitis kid. She can't go running around town willy-nilly, but, she can walk around the hospital and talk to people and that kind of stuff, Maybe she's a little more restricted because of her crazy terminal illness, but it's not a catching plague or anything, so they don't have to lock her up in quarantine. So if I had a disease kind of like that, I knew I was going to die, but I'm not in really immediate pain, and I can kind of go around and do stuff, I would be doing crazy stuff before I died and not sitting in a hospital, going bleh.
I think the problem is that from what I can gather, because they don't tell you much about what's going on, but I think it's some sort of congenital heart defect or some sort of something to do with the heart or possibly the lungs. And a large heart, it's really hard to tell.
I think they're trying to be ambiguous on purpose so that you can put any disease you want in there.
Yeah, but yet they're very realistic about it. It's not like, anime diseases where the person's fine except when they exert themselves for plot, and then they suddenly pass out magically.
Yeah.
Like, the kid has hepatitis, and it makes sense, and it just works.
Mm-hmm. I think it's actually a good choice to keep her illness sort of vague, because then the show becomes timeless. Like, if they said it was cancer, and then one day they had a cure for cancer, all of a sudden the show's kind of silly. But if they just say disease, then you could put any disease in that spot, and the show will make sense.
But I think the reason she can't leave the hospital anymore is simply that, I mean, you can tell that she is very sick, and she really can't do anything. And I think without the constant care of doctors, she would die in short order.
Oh, yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. But another reason she probably shouldn't leave the hospital is that if she suddenly, like, is almost dying, then they might as well do the surgery that has, like, the 1% chance of success or whatever. They didn't actually say 1% in the show, but...
It's not like Ava with a, 0.1% chance of success, blah, blah, blah.
Or like Death Note, I'm 5% sure you are Kira, But it's like, if I had a surgery with a low chance of success, right, you wouldn't want to do it to me until the last possible minute.
Well, it depends.
It just makes sense.
I could see it being where the longer you wait, the lower the chances are.
Oh, of course.
And then it's a really, they don't really talk about it a lot, but it's a really tricky situation. And there are a lot of characters. I mean, the girl's mother is involved, and you see her like in the background periodically. And the show's very good at not telling you outright what's happening, but letting you find out.
Mm-hmm. And each episode it's actually episodic. Like, each episode is about something different, and the general plot carries over, but each episode tends to be about something, So you can watch one episode and get, like, the mini story, and then all the 6 mini stories tie together into the full story.
And the one thing I'd like to say is that the animation is very generic, and the show looks like your typical, copy and paste, random, normal anime. And the characters at first might look very stereotypical and one-dimensional, but they're actually fairly well developed, especially considering how few episodes there are. I mean, every character, the nurse and everyone, they're very distinct, and they have a lot of, I guess, character elements that don't play a big role, but they play a big role in terms of fleshing the character out.
Yeah, it seems like the personalities of the characters come out, and, they don't develop so much, except for, like, the main characters. But they're exposed in a nice way.
But not in a stupid way. Like, the doctor, there's a point at which, I mean, you really don't know what he's thinking, and no one just comes out and says what he's thinking. And you have to make a lot of guesses based on the way he's acting. And at one point, the doctor, you run into him, and he's drinking himself into a stupor and kind of going nuts in the middle of the night, all alone.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, another thing is, the characters don't have a lot of, like, information-heavy history. Like, you don't have to know that, like, this guy has 2 parents and a sister, and the sister was in a war, and the dad was this and the who.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of that stuff they just don't even talk about, so you don't have to, it's only 6 episodes. They don't have space for that stuff.
So the show's very focused on the here and the now.
Yep. It's very good. So, I know that our friends who are listening have seen the movie Night on Galactic Railroad, and they're probably all right now going, well, if you've seen this movie, it's a really, really slow anime.
It's really good if you watch it at about 4x fast forward.
Yeah. I mean, it has a good story. It's really meaningful. If you might not like the actual message, but the way the message is presented is very good.
Yeah, that's the way I would describe it.
Yeah. It has good, it's like this, think of it as like the Polar Express, but for Japan.
Yeah, apparently it's based on a very well-known and very famous book.
Yeah, so the book of this movie plays a role in one of the episodes of the Half Moon show.
Now, we didn't realize it right away because they translated the title of the book a bit differently.
Yeah, the American DVD that I have, yes, I have it, of Night on Galactic Railroad. That's what it says on the DVD. In the anime here, the book the girl has says Night on Milky Way Express or something like that.
Yeah, it's one of those, fan subbers will translate a sign in the background or some text on the screen. It's not up there fast enough to see it, and we were too lazy to rewind and look at it.
Yeah, but it's not the same translation, so it didn't catch on right away. I thought it might have been like Galaxy Express 999 or something like that.
Yeah, and we didn't even think about it until the character, there's this really neat, not really allegory, but the characters start referring to each other by the names from the story. Giovanni and Campanella.
Yeah, so, and the thing is, if you've read this story or seen this other anime that's, called Night on Galactic Railroad, that has parallels to this show that, it's like, oh, it means something. But even if you haven't seen it, they reveal what happens in this other anime in this show. So
yeah,
you don't
pretty much right away. I mean, we noticed the connection, and it was kind of profound, and it really gave us pause. And then 5 minutes later in the show, the character who didn't realize it yet figures it out on his own, and as a result, everyone in the audience now knows, whether you've read it or not.
Yeah, it's basically, if you already know what they're talking about, then it hits you like 5 minutes earlier than it hits everyone else. It's just a nice touch, I think, that they added reference to a real book,
Yeah. Plus, the book actually fits really well with what's going on.
Oh, really well. I think that's the point. Like, imagine if I wrote a story that was essentially Star Wars, but it was all, I changed the whole setting and all the names of the characters and everything. But this guy was essentially Luke, and that guy was Darth Vader. And then I had a character reading or like watching Star Wars on DVD in the show. And then they started referring to each other as like Luke and Darth. And then that actually represented the story because they were. That's what it'd be like.
Now, I guess in sum, I like this show a lot, and I have very high hopes for it. My final opinion is going to weigh very heavily on how the show actually ends.
Once I found out that there were 6 episodes, my estimate for how good it's going to be like skyrocketed. So, yeah.
I mean, the show's very heartwarming. I think it's very real and very profound. Not profound in a change your life way, but profound in a give pause and think about what would you do if you were in this kind of situation.
I just told you that like 5 minutes ago. I already figured it out.
Well, everyone reacts to that differently. I mean, the girl in the show is obviously resigned to her fate, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And it's more how the people around her are dealing with this.
All I got to tell you, if I know you, and you're in the hospital and you're going to die in like a week, and you're not, and you have the ability to come outside and live it up, and you're not doing so, I'm only going to visit you like once maybe. And I'll say, hey, you should come live it up. Sorry to see you go, etc., etc. I'll go to your funeral though. So,
huh?
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about a show that we really like. Now, we're going to talk about one of the worst shows we've seen recently.
Oh man, this show is bad.
Now, we didn't like Kagehime, and we went into great detail as to why we didn't like Kagehime.
If you don't remember, Kagehime was the key rape show.
Yeah, the cute, happy, magical girl show where they rape each other horribly with keys, both physically and metaphorically. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen.
I've seen worse things, but it was real bad.
Now, this show is pretty much down there in terms of quality.
Man, and the show was so tricky, too. Like, you didn't know right away. You had to watch a bit.
All right, so Tactical Roar. The way it began is it looked like it was going to be some sort of military thing. It starts with heavy military action.
It looked like it was going to be a light-hearted Gundam.
Yeah, our friend Katsu was laying on the floor while we're watching it, and he was basically like naming all the fighter jets and all the guns. And the show, at least in terms of military hardware, was somewhat realistic and based in reality, just future reality.
It has appealed to military fanboys somewhat. Especially if you also like, girly anime type action.
Now, all right, that's cool. Then, after a few minutes, we realized something very important. The entire cast and crew up to this point is female.
Hence the girly anime type action.
Like, everyone. There is not a male to be seen. There might have been one fat old, admiral somewhere. But other than that, it's all women. All very young women with very large breasts.
Yep, every single crew member. And it's not just like a harem show where there's one girl of each type. It's like a whole harem and then a whole mess of other generic girls. Like a giant crowd of them, literally.
So at this point, we've decided, all right, this show is crap, but whatever. Let's keep watching.
We watched it for about 5 more minutes. I don't think you didn't watch the whole thing, did we? I think
we watched much of it.
Yeah, I think we watched like 80% of the episode and then fast-forwarded through the rest. And
so it doesn't go in the direction you'd think. They do introduce one male character, so it is essentially a harem show. However, it's a Yuri show as far as we can tell, because, there's this one girl who appears, and she's, older looking than all the rest, and they give you the impression that she has had sexual relations with every single other female character in this show.
Yeah, it's like a girl, there's a normal sort of like woman, and she's talking to the guy character, and this girl comes up and is like, oh, why are you talking to him? And then like a million start showing up like vying for her attention and stuff, and it's like, okay.
Then she appears later covered in lipstick of various colors over various parts of her body.
Yeah.
And again, I'll mention that every single non-male breast in this show is gigantic.
It bounces, it's exposed, it's zoomed in, you got all the typical things falling on top of men, accidental extra cleavage, upskirt action.
Yeah, basically infinite sea of panty shots.
Yeah, all the moe and yuri that you could ask for.
This show basically, I didn't see any redeeming qualities at all.
I saw one redeeming quality in the show. It's the only show that I've seen that combines military fanboy and perverted fanboy into one.
I'll bet there are shows out there.
I'm
that
sure
do
there
that
are,
just
but
as well.
this is the only one that I've ever seen at all.
I mean, at least Kagehime had a cute opener.
It did have a cute opener.
This show has nothing. This show is just horrible.
The animation had lots of bright colors.
That seems to be the hallmark of bad shows these days.
But the thing is, I like bright colors. I wish that there would be good shows with bright colors.
Well,
Razafon was a good show with bright colors.
Yeah, Utena was good, but that was definitely all pastels.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking more about like the... You know what I mean.
Actually, Half Moon is very bright and well-defined.
Part of it. It's in the hospital. I think that's what keeps a lot of the colors down.
Yeah, but whenever they go outside, it really shines.
Yeah. Anyone else can think of good shows with bright colors? Ava sometimes has bright colors, but it seems to be very industrial, so it's not... the penciling isn't the same bright happiness.
Yeah, plus Ava was done old school. I mean, Ava's kind of old.
Yeah. Azumanga Daioh has bright colors.
Ha, and Azumanga Daioh is one of my favorite shows ever.
Yeah, it is.
Didn't even mention it in Favorites Week.
No, he didn't. We'll have to mention, maybe it'll make Manga Week. It's actually, I think the manga is
I don't know, because in manga, it's competing with Yotsubato.
Yeah, I think Yotsuba might win, but it's the same thing by the same guy.
Yeah, it's
as
just
far as I'm
distilled.
concerned, Yotsuba 1 is like Azumanga Daioh 5. Only, yeah, I think Yotsuba's better. Whatever. It's all good.
So in sum,
this anime was so bad we couldn't even talk about it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we stopped watching it. We watched Kagehime episode 1 all the way through. In fact, we watched it a couple times because we showed it to other people who didn't believe us when we told them what was in it.
Yeah, we had to demonstrate what key rape was to them.
Because I remember Pete was sitting there saying, all right, you guys are obviously, this is going to be like that naked car thing, and it's actually something else. No.
Naked Car is actually Naked Car, so I don't know what he's talking about.
But anyway, Half Moon is a very good show, and it's only 6 episodes. I highly recommend all of you out there watch it. It's well worth seeing.
Yeah, there's a torrent right now to get all 6 episodes at once. I'm getting it because we don't have the 6th episode, and I can't get the 6th episode on its own, so I'm getting this 1 through 6 torrent.
I mean, don't drop anything. If you're in the middle of watching Cowboy Bebop, don't drop that to watch the show. But if you
hold
want
on
anime,
to the show and watch it someday.
Yeah, if you want anime to watch this.
And I'm sure someday this whole thing will be released on a single DVD.
Yeah,
for like
I'll
20,
definitely
$30.
say that'll happen.
Probably like a $25 DVD, 6 episodes.
And of course, we're going to talk about it one more time after we see how it ends in one of our final thoughts episodes.
Yep.
Which we try to do few and far between because we know that once we start talking about a show in that regard, you really can't listen to Geeknights anymore. At least for that episode, because we'll just be spoiling the hell out of the show if you haven't seen it.
Well, you can listen to the news and the thing of the day and then turn Geeknights off or...
The one thing about Geeknights, we will always warn well ahead of time if we're going to spoil things. Like, repeatedly and loudly.
You know what happens at the end of, blah, blah?
Blah, 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 blah.
Everyone dies.
Yeah, so at the end of Tactical Roar, I assume everyone dies.
Really?
That freaking show.
You know what? In Tactical Roar, that guy comes very, very close to fulfilling his multi-woman, lesbian, multi-way fantasy.
No, because they're all lesbians.
But he never quite makes it all the way. That's what the show's about. It's just about teasing to the edge.
See, now, normally if a show is bad, like Kagehime, we said, hey, watch it because this is so bad it's hilarious and horrible. Don't even bother watching Tactical Roar. It's so bad, it's not even funny bad. Like, you won't sit there going, haha, this is terrible. You'll just sit there in disgust.
unless, of course, you really, really, really like military fanboyism.
Hey, if you
Or unless you really, really, really like upskirts and panty shots. And
if any of you out there
cleavage and-
actually like Tactical Roar, we have to have some words.
Yeah, is there anyone out there who actually likes, like, TNA, like, sort of porny but not hentai anime?
Yeah, we're not talking like Ghost in the Shell or anything like that.
Yeah,
we're talking
where the
like,
girls happen to be hot.
like magical booby fighter X something.
We're talking, like, Burn Up with the, or what's the other show? Dirty Pair. If you like Dirty Pair, tell us why in our forum.
Dirty Pair's not that bad. There
It's
are
not.
worse
There's actually
examples.
some show in Dirty Pair, but there's also the jiggle meter. So,
All right, you know what? Tactical Roar. If you like Tactical Roar, I think we can unabashedly say we probably hate you.
Yep, could be.
And that was Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for our opening theme.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com. If you like our podcast, you'll love our forums. Make sure you visit them. You can send your email feedback to geeknights@gmail.com. And if you want, you can leave us a voicemail at 206-333-1537.
Geeknights airs every weeknight, Monday through Thursday.
Geeknights is recorded with absolutely no studio and no audience. But unlike those other talk shows, it's actually recorded at night.